I secretly feel guilty about my coworker's loss, even though I know I'm not responsible for what occurred. My coworker had a terrible experience last month. Her family planned a big reunion, the first one they had in years. People flew in from all over the country, and they booked a block of rooms at a hotel near where her parents live. She was so excited in the weeks leading up to it. She showed me pictures of her cousins and aunts and uncles she hadn't seen since she was a kid. She talked about all the food they were planning to make and the games they were going to play. It sounded like something out of a movie. I knew the reunion took a lot of planning. She spent hours on the phone coordinating with her siblings. She also made a lot of spreadsheets about who was bringing what dish and who was staying in which room. She seemed stressed, but she also seemed like she was enjoying the process. I helped her proofread some of the emails she sent out. I also gave her advice on how to deal with some of the more difficult relatives. She appreciated the help. I think she really wanted the reunion to be perfect. She had high expectations. I did not expect anything to go wrong. Everything seemed fine from what she told me at first. She told me about all the fun activities they did, like going to a baseball game and visiting a local park. She said her kids got along well with their cousins, which was a relief. There were some minor disagreements, like who got to use the bathroom first, but nothing major. She even said her parents seemed happy, which is rare. I was happy for her. I thought she finally got the family gathering she always wanted. The reunion itself seemed to go well. She came back to work afterward full of stories about catching up with relatives, embarrassing childhood memories, and her grandmother's questionable cooking. She seemed genuinely happy, which was nice to see because she typically keeps to herself. A few days later, though, everything changed. She came into work looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. I asked her if she was okay, and she just shook her head. She told me, voice trembling, that everything she owned was gone. I was confused. I asked what she meant. She explained that after the reunion, she decided to stay an extra night at the hotel. She wanted to relax and unwind before going back to her normal routine. She checked out of her initial room and into a smaller, cheaper one on a different floor. That evening, she went out to dinner with some family members who were still in town. When she returned to her new room, the door was ajar. She called hotel security right away. They came up and took a report, looking around the room and making notes. The police arrived a short time later. They asked her a lot of questions about who she had seen, what she had been doing, and what exactly was missing. She felt like they were suspicious of her, like they thought she was making it up or trying to scam the hotel. The whole process took hours. After they left, she could not sleep. She just sat there in the chair, staring at the door, feeling violated and scared. The hotel management moved her to another room, but she still did not feel safe. The next morning, she filed a formal police report and contacted her insurance company. They told her it would take time to process her claim and that she needed to provide proof of ownership for many of the items. That seemed impossible since many things, such as the cash, had no proof. She spent the entire day on the phone with the insurance company and the police, trying to sort through the mess. She had to cancel her credit cards and order new identification. She felt overwhelmed and helpless. Coming to work was the only thing that felt normal, even though she was running on fumes. At first, she thought she might have forgotten to close it properly, but then she saw the room was ransacked. Her suitcase was open, clothes strewn everywhere, and her purse was missing. She quickly realized everything valuable was gone. Her laptop, her jewelry, her cash, even some sentimental items like her grandmother's locket were gone. She called the police, of course, and they came and took a report, but the hotel staff didn't seem particularly concerned. They mumbled something about not being responsible for theft and suggested she contact her insurance company. The police told her the chances of recovering her belongings were slim. They said hotel thefts are common, and thieves often target tourists or people attending events like family reunions. She was devastated. The missing items weren't just replaceable things. The stolen suitcase contained her grandmother's jewelry, some irreplaceable photos, and the small amount of cash she had been saving. She had planned to use that money as a deposit on a new apartment. Now, that was gone too. I felt terrible for her because she had already been through so much recently. I asked her why she hadn't mentioned any of this before. She explained that she felt embarrassed and ashamed. She didn't want people to know she was living in a hotel or that she had lost her apartment. She had always been independent, and she hated asking for help. She was trying to handle the situation on her own, but the theft was the final straw. What she told me next broke my heart. She wasn't just staying in the hotel for fun, she was living there. A few months prior, she had lost her apartment due to a fire. Thankfully, she had been at work when it happened, so she was unharmed, but she lost practically everything she owned. She had been staying at the hotel ever since, saving money to find a new place. The things that were stolen were all she had left. She didn't have renter's insurance because she thought it was pointless since she planned on moving in a month or so. I felt terrible for her. I couldn't imagine losing everything twice in such a short period. I tried to be supportive, offering words of encouragement and helping her look for resources. Our other coworkers also pitched in, donating clothes, toiletries, and money to help her get back on her feet. It was heartwarming to see everyone come together. I thought the fire was an accident at first. I mean, what else could it be? We all assumed it was faulty wiring or something similar. The building was old, and things like that happened. She told us she lost pretty much everything she owned. I helped her fill out paperwork for assistance programs. I also drove her to appointments. It felt like the right thing to do. But then I started thinking more about that phone conversation I overheard. The argument about money, the mention of eviction, it didn't sit right with me. I started to wonder if maybe the fire wasn't an accident. Could she have possibly done something? I pushed the thought away immediately. It seemed crazy. She seemed devastated by the fire. There was no way she could have caused it. Still, the seed of doubt was planted. Here's where my confession comes in. A few weeks before her apartment fire, I noticed she was acting strangely. She seemed stressed and preoccupied. One day, I overheard her on the phone, arguing with someone about money. She mentioned something about being behind on rent and facing eviction. I didn't think much of it at the time. People have financial problems. However, a few days later, I saw her sneaking around in the office after hours. I had stayed late to finish a project, and as I was leaving, I saw her heading towards the file room. The file room is where we keep all the important documents, including employee records and financial statements. It's supposed to be locked after hours, but I saw she had a key. I didn't think much of it, but it struck me as strange. I decided to watch her more closely in the following days. I paid attention to her work habits and her interactions with other employees. I tried to observe if she acted differently or seemed stressed. I even subtly checked the file room when I had the opportunity to see if I could spot the missing documents. I found nothing unusual, and she acted like normal. She arrived on time, did her work, and socialized as usual during lunch breaks. I almost convinced myself that I was wrong about her. Perhaps someone else had taken the documents, and I just happened to see her near the file room that night. Maybe she had a legitimate reason to be there. I wanted to believe that she was innocent, but I still had a nagging doubt. I struggled with what to do next. I could confront her directly, but I feared that would damage our working relationship and potentially alert her to my suspicions. I could report my concerns to my manager, but without concrete evidence, it might seem like I was making accusations without cause. I could also ignore it and hope that the documents would reappear, but that felt irresponsible, especially considering the sensitive nature of the information. I considered the possible repercussions of each action. Weighing my options made me extremely anxious. I decided to give it a little more time and try to gather more information before taking any decisive action. The next day, I noticed that some documents were missing from the file room. Specifically, some expense reports and reimbursement forms were gone. I didn't say anything to anyone because I had no proof, and I didn't want to get her in trouble if I was wrong. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was involved. I assumed she was going through a rough patch and made a desperate choice. I convinced myself that she would return the documents eventually. Then her apartment burned down. At the time, I felt awful for her. I assumed it was just a tragic accident. But after the hotel theft, a thought crept into my head that I haven't been able to shake. What if the fire wasn't an accident? What if she set it herself? The fire seemed to happen right when things were getting tight at work. We were about to have an audit, and she knew it. I remember her complaining about how stressed she was, about how she didn't know how she was going to make rent. I thought she was just venting, but maybe she was setting the stage. The fire destroyed all her belongings. It seems like it would be awful, but it also provided a clean slate. All her debts were wiped out. She had an excuse for not having any records. She could start over. I understand this is all speculation. I acknowledge I am connecting dots that may not be there, but I can't dismiss my gut feeling. Something about her behavior has always seemed off. It feels like she is always one step ahead. She seems to have an answer for everything. It is almost like she anticipated these problems. It makes me wonder what else she is capable of. Maybe I am wrong, but I need to investigate this further, even if it is just for my own peace of mind. I know it sounds crazy. I have no evidence to support this theory, but the timing seems suspicious. She was struggling financially, she was sneaking around in the office, and then suddenly, her apartment burns down, and she loses everything. It's possible that she was trying to destroy evidence of her embezzlement, or maybe she was hoping to collect insurance money. I haven't told anyone about my suspicions. I'm afraid of what would happen if I'm wrong. I don't want to ruin her life based on a hunch, but the guilt is eating me alive. I feel like I should say something, but I don't know what to do. I think about it constantly. I replay the last few months in my head. I see her decline. I remember her increasing anxiety. I noticed her erratic behavior. I wonder if I could have done something differently. I question my own judgment. I analyze our interactions. I try to pinpoint the exact moment things went wrong. I search for a sign I missed. I look for a clue I overlooked. I need to find a reason for this. My inaction weighs on me. I struggle to reconcile my silence with my conscience. I consider the consequences of my choices. I understand the potential fallout of speaking up. I realize that I am complicit. I acknowledge my role in this situation. I recognize that I could have intervened. I accept that I chose not to. I am ashamed of my behavior. I blame myself for what occurred. I worry about the implications of my silence. I hope that it is not too late to make amends. What makes it even more complicated is that I feel partially responsible for what happened to her at the hotel. If I had reported her for stealing the documents, she might not have been in such a desperate situation. She might not have lost her apartment, and she might not have been living in a hotel room where she was vulnerable to theft. I know it's a stretch. I'm not a detective. I'm just a coworker who made a bad call, but the thought keeps nagging at me. Did my silence enable her to make a series of bad decisions that ultimately led to her downfall? I keep thinking about the sequence of events. She confided in me about some shady dealings. I told her I would not tell anyone. I thought I was being supportive, protecting her privacy. Now I wonder if that was the right thing to do. Maybe if I had spoken up, things would be different. I do not know what to do with this guilt. Maybe intervening would have changed the outcome. I cannot be certain. I am not sure if there is a world where she does not eventually end up in this situation. I know my inaction plays a part in this. I could have said something or done something. I did not. I now must live with that fact. I am attempting to process my responsibility in this whole situation. I understand that I cannot be blamed for the fire. That would be irrational. The hotel theft is even more unrelated, but I had some information that could have potentially averted all of this. The reality is I saw suspicious activity and chose to do nothing. I felt like I was doing a good deed, but she could be the architect of her misfortune. I wonder if she is a bad person, or just someone that made bad decisions. I have thought about hiring a private investigator, but the cost is prohibitive. It would also look extremely strange to everyone. I am in a constant state of anxiety over the situation. I wish that I had just reported her when I saw her go into the file room. I have learned a lesson, I guess. I will never let anything like this happen again. If I see something, I will say something. I can't help but feel guilty though. I should have said something sooner, so maybe she would have stopped. I was weak, and now I will have to live with this. The worst part is that she keeps thanking me for my support. She tells me how much it means to her that I'm there for her during this difficult time. Every time she says that, I feel like a hypocrite. I want to tell her everything, but I'm afraid of the consequences. What do I do? Do I keep my suspicions to myself and live with the guilt? Or do I confront her and risk ruining everything? I really don't know. I am just very conflicted right now. The truth is that I may never know, but I will carry this burden with me forever. She may be a victim and I am villainizing her, or she may be a villain and I am enabling her. Either way, it is my fault.